To say there is no shortage of Souls-like games on the market would be an understatement. The genre's popularity is undeniable, and there have been many great releases over the last few years in the indie gaming scene. Games such as Hollow Knight and Blasphemous have successfully blended Souls-like gameplay into a Metroidvania format, while other titles like Lies of P and Mortal Shell have taken a more traditional Souls approach while adding a flair all of their own. Deathbound, coming to us from Trialforge Studio and Tate Multimedia, looks to spice the genre up a bit by offering a single-player party-based experience. Yes, you heard that correctly. But did Deathbound deliver the visceral challenge and gameplay Souls fans so dearly love? Or is my soul going to be leaving my body? Let's find out in our full review. Real quick, consider supporting indie gaming coverage that still has a soul by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and heading over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to gain Discord access and more. We also live stream every Tuesday and Thursday here and at Twitch. Your new indie gaming community is waiting for you. Deathbound is yet another difficult on purpose Souls-like title, this time offering up a party swapping mechanic to try to set itself apart from the herd. Saying that a game is a single-player party-based experience will never not sound weird to me, and it's even stranger in execution. The game takes place in the city of Akratya. Boy, that just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? You begin as Theron. Okay, seriously, are the developers just messing with me with these names? Anyways, Theron is reciting some sort of prayer during the opening moments, and I'm with him because I'm praying I can make it through this review. There is a war being waged between generic-looking skeleton bros and even more generic-looking common folk. I just want to get this out of the way up front. I have no damn clue what is going on in this game, and I really have no desire to learn. Unfortunately, the game doesn't really give me a reason to care. I don't know how else to say this, and I truly tried to come up with a better way, but every character in this game looks like a douchebag. Look at Theron and tell me I'm wrong, I dare you. Theron seems to be in charge of the Skeleton Bro army, who, after successfully holding off the regular-looking people's attack, I guess, is tasked with finding Solion Legiones. Let me try that again. Solon Legiones. Solon appears to be protecting some sort of experiment which launches a massive beacon of light that catches Theron's attention. Boy, will I be glad when I don't have to say these names ever again in life. He enters the lab where the explosion of light took place while exhibiting one of the most hilarious animations I've ever seen. This guy has as much grace and swagger as Frankenstein's monster trying to do the moonwalk. The world is void of any life, color, or dare I say, soul. This is your Dollar Tree Souls-like if I've ever seen one. Characters that you encounter and eventually party up with have equally nonsensical backstories that I won't bore you with here. So obviously, you won't be playing Deathbound for the story, but what of the gameplay? Certainly, many video games have lacked a compelling narrative throughout the years and still manage to be fun. That sadly isn't the case here. Deathbound is a relatively linear experience that mostly follows a set path. Just like most other Souls-like games, your goal is to travel through predefined areas, survive monsters, reach save points to level up, and ultimately take down big bad bosses. It is a challenging game, but not because of the Souls-like influences so much here. Instead, it's the lackluster mechanics that you'll be battling with the most. When playing as Theron, you'll have the usual set of combat skills. Players have a limited stamina bar that needs to recharge, and fast and heavy attack options. Obviously, your heavy attack will burn through more stamina. You can sprint through environments, which will also use some of that stamina, but this only results in a character having a brief pause for a moment, almost like he had to check his pants for a dookie, and then he can start running again. So it just feels pointless and annoying to not just have an unlimited run. Blocking and parrying are also options depending on which character you control. The real twist on the formula comes from your ability to absorb the spirits of other characters and swap between them using the D-pad. Each character feels different enough, with examples being a thief that's able to perform sneak attack kills and a magic-based user that can fire off a limited amount of projectiles. Firing off too many too quickly will cause damage to yourself. There are neat concepts here, but in the heat of battle, the act of swapping becomes difficult and is even unresponsive at times, leading to many unnecessary deaths. Fighting bosses in particular is an absolute nightmare this way when having to rely on that swapping. Yes, a quick swap is available that attempts to alleviate some of the frustration, but it just didn't really work for me. And you know, Deathbound really wants you to love its swapping mechanic, going as far as to allow players to chain together combos. Striking an enemy and swapping at the right time can cause even more damage. Again, a neat idea, but it's just kind of poorly executed. The warts really begin to show in close quarters combat, where hits will often go directly through your enemies, even though you can clearly see them making contact. With combat being such a focus of the game and it being so severely flawed, Deathbound quickly becomes a lesson in frustration. Now, I'm not against the challenge, but when it's the mechanics of a game failing you as opposed to smart enemy AI, well-defined level design, and intricate boss patterns taking you out, which by the way, Deathbound has none of that stuff, it becomes impossible to enjoy the experience. Save beacons are scattered throughout areas as well, and shortcuts back to them can eventually be unlocked. These rest areas allow you to cash out experience that was earned and to level everyone up on a basic skill grid, nothing you haven't seen in a million other games. Your essences, as they're referred to, also have unique talents, and you can bind them together in specific orders for additional perks. Should you die at any point, you'll drop all of your experience and be back to that last save point. This means, you guessed it, plenty of backtracking through the same areas and enemies over and over again, and it's often best just to run right by the enemies and grab your experience again. Leveling is also easy, as a wave of enemies are almost always very close to the save, so you can simply hack them down and run back to the save over and over. Not fun, but it can be done. You might as well do that instead of struggling through cheap encounters. Deathbound also has a few items which can be equipped, such as rings, potions for healing, and other vials that can be tossed at your foes. A certain amount of strategy is required in every battle, as all of your essences will have separate health and stamina. Using a potion on one essence also results in the other being penalized, which is just nonsense. The game continues to introduce more mechanics and systems, but they all feel pretty pointless and shallow while also being completely unnecessary. It really feels like the developers had this interesting concept and they tried to execute on it while making everything else about the game 100% generic. All told, Deathbound is about as much fun as eating at a Chuck E. Cheese buffet. The visuals are drab, animations at times laughably bad, and backgrounds lifeless. The world has no rich lore worth exploring, no characters of interest, and just no real purpose. Yarnum, this is not. Seriously though, the game's graphics do nothing to stand out and really just seem to be trying all too hard to capture the favor of the Souls crowd. I'm not even sure the final boss of Die Hard Souls Bros will find anything new or exciting here. It all just looks completely generic, even down to the bosses and cutscenes. Disappointing, to say the least. The world is also void of any real music. I spent hours running about with nothing for my ears to enjoy but generic sound effects and subpar voice performances. You could hear my yawn off in the distance though. Oh, and the dog farted a few times while I was playing, I heard that, but not much else. I will say this though, the game ran well for the most part, with a few dips here or there, but I did encounter some graphical oddities and glitches. Climbing ladders could produce awkward camera angles or get my character stuck entirely. One hard crash even temporarily halted my gameplay, but even worse, I lost my save entirely after many hours of gameplay, and I had to start this damn review over. Hopefully that was more to do with the game being a review build and won't carry over into the final release. But perhaps the weirdest thing regarding Deathbound is what it isn't, a multiplayer game. It sets itself up as a party-based experience and yet has no online features. I'm not saying having a friend to play would have fixed everything, but it certainly would have been nice considering all of the different characters available. I could see a lot of potential for 4 players working together online, but alas, this isn't the case, at least at launch. Deathbound is a game that feels like it had an original idea and stuffed it into a generic Souls skin. Worse yet, the one original idea it does have ends up falling flat on its face. There's just nothing here for longtime fans of the genre, and it isn't welcoming to newcomers either. If you would like to burn through 20 to 30 hours of life on a lackluster Souls-like experience, well, here's your chance. Everyone else should avoid Deathbound like the plague, because this one's getting the indie Krampus.
Huh?